Hey everyone, welcome back. I am so incredibly thrilled you're joining me for today's explainer because, honestly, we are unpacking something that almost feels like magic. But the coolest part, it's completely grounded in some incredibly fascinating social science. You know, we hear the term reverse psychology thrown around all the time in sitcoms or casual conversation, but the actual reality behind why and how it works is just amazing. So today, we're diving deep into the mechanics of human persuasion and figuring out exactly why our brains are just hardwired to resist being told what to do. Okay, I want you to picture this. Think about a time when someone looked you right in the eye and told you that you absolutely could not do something. Did it instantly make you want to do it? Let's be totally honest here. Whether it was a parent telling you not to touch a hot stove when you were a kid, or maybe a friend recently saying you couldn't possibly win a bet, what was your visceral, immediate reaction? For pretty much all of us, that hard no acts like throwing gasoline on a spark, right? It just instantly creates this burning desire to prove them wrong. It's this universal communication roadblock that literally every single one of us experiences. And you know, that exact frustration brings us to the core of what this explainer is all about. This whole phenomenon isn't just some quirky little human flaw. It is genuinely the ultimate social paradox. Reverse psychology basically takes the very thing that frustrates us most, human stubbornness, and totally flips it on its head, turning it into a mechanism for agreement. By really understanding this paradox, we can stop fighting against human nature and actually start working with it. All right, let's jump right into section 1, the persuasion paradox. So looking at these two approaches, there is just a massive contrast in how we communicate. First up, we've got direct persuasion. And this is what most of us do by default, right? We have an idea, we want someone to agree with us, so we just kind of push it on them. But pushing an idea almost inherently creates friction. It's literally like trying to push a stubborn dog into a bathtub. The harder you push, the more they just brace their paws and dig into the ground. But on the flip side, look at the persuasion paradox. Instead of pushing, you pull away. You withdraw the option entirely or maybe suggest the exact opposite. And magically, pulling away creates desire. It's essentially the classic playing hard to get dynamic, but applied ideas and requests. Moving right along to section 2, the psychology of reactance. To really wrap our heads around this, we have to look at the engine running the whole show here, which is called reactance. In clinical social psychology, reactance is defined as a motivational arousal that occurs when people feel their freedom or autonomy is being threatened, prompting them to resist. And guys, this is a massive aha moment for understanding human behavior. We are deeply, biologically wired to protect our freedom of choice, period. So when you tell someone they absolutely must do something, their brain doesn't just process a simple request, it registers a threat. Their rejection isn't even always about the task itself. A lot of times, it's just an automatic knee-jerk reflex to reclaim their independence. And you can clearly see the real-world effect of that theory mapped out here. It's a direct correlation. When the level of direct pressure applied to someone is low, their psychological resistance stays nice and low. But as you dial up the heat, moving to medium and then high direct pressure, their natural psychological resistance spikes in exact tandem. You're not actually increasing their likelihood of compliance. You're really just building a much taller wall for yourself to have to climb over. Okay, let's get into the toolkit. Section 3, core reverse psychology techniques. So the million-dollar question, how do we actually bypass that giant wall of resistance? Well, let's compare these two approaches. First, look at the direct request. You need to finish this task now. It triggers reactance immediately, right? Because it's bossy and it threatens their autonomy. Now, look at the reverse technique. This task might be too complex for you to finish today. Notice what just happened there? You didn't demand a single thing. Instead, you subtly challenged their capability. Suddenly, the only way for them to assert their autonomy and prove their competence to you is to finish that task today. You just totally bypass their resistance by changing the rules of the game. It's kind of brilliant. To actually execute this reliably in the real world, there's a very specific 3-step dance you need to follow. Step 1, identify the resistance. You've got to recognize that direct persuasion simply isn't working and that reactance has officially set in. Step 2, suggest the exact opposite of what you actually want. But listen up, because the real secret sauce is right here in step 3. Step back and allow full autonomy. If you linger or if you push that reverse idea way too hard, it becomes super obvious. You absolutely have to make the suggestion and then genuinely give them the space to make their own choice. That illusion of total control is exactly what locks the technique into place. Now, the act of suggesting the opposite can actually take a few different mechanical forms.
First up is paradoxical intention, which is actively encouraging the negative behavior. Think about it. If someone is just complaining relentlessly, totally agreeing with them and telling them they should complain more often kind of forces them to realize how ridiculous they sound, which usually prompts them to stop. Second, we have anticipating refusal. This is saying something like, look, I know you're probably going to say no to this, but by assuming their refusal out loud, you totally steal their thunder. To rebel against you now, they kind of have to say yes. And finally, reverse suggestion. This is where you suggest an alternative that is clearly less desirable, which makes your true preferred option look vastly superior by comparison.
All right, let's look at who this is actually for. Section 4, Navigating the Social Dynamics.
Now, a quick caveat, this isn't a magic wand that works on everyone. Think about the highly independent people in your life, the famously stubborn individuals, the contrarians, the people constantly seeking autonomy. Do you recognize any of these traits? Maybe in a specific manager or a teenager living in your house, or that one peer who just absolutely loves to play devil's advocate? These folks are your ideal targets. Reverse psychology works best on people whose reactance trigger is highly sensitive. If someone is naturally compliant and agreeable, please do not use these techniques. They will literally just agree with your reverse suggestion and do the exact opposite of what you actually want.
And we see these highly independent personalities spread across entirely different facets of our daily lives, from parent and child dynamics to a manager and an independent employee to everyday peer negotiations. What's so incredible to me is that while the context changes drastically, we're talking about going from trying to get a stubborn toddler to eat their broccoli, all the way to getting a senior developer to take on a really tough project, the underlying psychology remains absolutely identical. In both cases, you are just managing the other person's need for control. Which brings us to our final part, Section 5, the power and the catch. With any powerful tool in social psychology, we've got to talk about boundaries, because there is a very fine line here. On one side, we have strategic communication. This is guiding someone toward an outcome that is ultimately mutually beneficial, like helping a stubborn employee finally succeed, or just keeping a child safe. But on the other side, we have manipulation, which is deceiving someone solely for your own self-interest, often at their expense. The mechanics of the psychology are exactly the same either way. Social science doesn't take sides, but it clearly defines that the dividing line between those two sides lies entirely in your intent. It really all comes down to this core truth right here. The need for autonomy is a fundamental human drive. When we feel it slipping, we will do almost anything to reclaim it. When you employ reverse psychology, you aren't casting some sort of mind control spell. You are quite simply stepping out of the way and letting a person's deepest need for freedom steer the ship. You are offering them the steering wheel, knowing exactly which direction their own instincts are going to force them to turn. And that brings me to one final, slightly provocative question to leave you all with today. Now that you understand the hidden mechanics of reactance and how powerfully our own brains fight for control, how easily do you think someone could use your own need for independence against you? I want you to pay close attention to your reactions this week. When you find yourself really digging your heels in, take a beat and ask yourself, are you actually making a choice, or are you just reacting to the pressure? Think about it. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, stay curious, and I'll catch you guys next time.